Encouraging open communication and embracing diversity,
Engaged.
partnering with our citizens and involved in our community,
Progressive.
embracing innovative strategies while maintaining proven practices,
Dedicated.
serving with integrity and professionalism. Elgin became an incorporated city in 1854 and installed its first police marshal, George W. Renwick. Over the years, the title of the head law enforcement officer changed from marshal to chief. And although the role has expanded, one duty has remained consistent: to ensure law and order for the citizens of Elgin.
It's time now for Fridays with the Finest, featuring Elgin's current police chief, Anna Lalley, on Elgin's hometown radio station since 1949, WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We are here with Chief Anna Lalley, Fridays with the Finest. And I don't think you get any finer than the Chief of Elgin, and I mean that sincerely. How you doing today, Chief? What's going on?
Good, doing well. I wasn't here last week. I had some business to take care of, police business. So try not to miss the show, but every now and then, my schedule.
Duty calls.
Duty calls, yes.
And you
So-
had a great presentation with the memorial. You had your hands full with all of that as well.
Oh, yeah. So that was the week of the police memorial. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for being there. I think that last time I was also here, we were doing Cop on Top. So
Yes.
I had Detective Josh Miller and Detective Brian Pollan. I think they raised, the number was $8,000.
Wow,
So
that's
for
great.
Cop on Top, which is really unheard of, because I can tell you, it's not unheard of since he's been doing it. But, back in the day, I can remember it was myself and then now retired Detective Tom Wollick, and we were running Special Olympics, and, we would do Cop on Top, and we would eventually go to the bank. And I think the most we ever for that day was maybe 3,000. So, I want to just say thank you to the Elgin community for showing up and coming out and supporting not only the police department, but most importantly, Special Olympics, and, meeting the athletes and talking to the athletes, and, getting to see where that funding goes to, and what it does. And again, I think, we choose to participate in things. The department has done it since I've been here. And, every year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, that's, the dedicated group of officers that Josh has put together, and obviously support from me and the command staff to make sure that they get what they need. And so he's just really done an exceptional job. And, I was out at 3 of the 4 Dunkin' Donuts. I wasn't able to make the 4th one. But, the community is out there. Everybody is just happy to donate, and and we had great weather, because sometimes the weather is kind of, it deters people a little bit. So wanted to mention that and say thank you. So what I wanted to do is, I don't really have anything planned, obviously. So if people want to call in with any questions, please do. But I have some things.
847-931-1410.
I want to
Feel
just
free to
kind of go over some crime stats, talk about some upcoming events. We are in high gear at the police department in terms of community events, special events, planning, all this stuff. So, I always, say January, February, March, we kind of, just reset a little bit, and, we regroup, and then we start getting into April, May, June, July, August, September. That's really the height of special events, a lot of planning. There's a lot of things going on. And then, we take a little pause before Nightmare on Chicago Street in October. And then really after October, you have a good, 3-4 months where we just kind of end of year reports, working on our annual reports, finishing up projects. We're also in the middle of budget season now. So this is the prime time. This is when it's a lot of stuff going on. So let me start off by just talking about some of the events that are coming up. So obviously we have the Pride Parade coming up on June 7th, which is next Saturday. So the parade kicks off, I believe, at 11 with an event to follow at Festival Park. You can go on the city's Facebook website for all this information. From a police perspective, obviously, it's planning, shutting down the streets, making sure there's a security plan in place. I think this is the 3rd year that the city has done a Pride Parade. And, our responsibility is to ensure that it's a safe event for everyone. So there is plenty of planning that goes on. We are also in full motion for planning for the 4th of July. 4th of July is, give or take a month away.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Right around the corner. So again, that day is extremely, very, a lot of people, whether it's working the parade, the festival at night, it's all hands on deck from myself to officers to everyone. So we plan now. There's a lot of logistics in the background. So my lieutenant in our traffic division, that's that position that they take where they do a lot of the planning with the city because the city's also planning. So Lieutenant Scott Holmes is in the process of making sure that our plans are correct. Every year we look at the event too, and we say, what are some things that we could do better? So and trying to remember, we do a debrief and we kind of have those conversations, but after the 4th of July, it's just, here comes the next event, here comes the next event. So we really do take some time to, say what were some of the points that maybe we need to, fine tune a little bit. So as these events come up, I do want to talk about fireworks a little bit. So it is May 30th and, I will tell you, so every year, for the past probably 5 years, our fireworks complaints are trending down. In 2020 and 21, it was crazy. It was, but then again, the outlier year of, COVID, right? So in 2020, everything is shut down. People are very anxious. People want to get out. They don't know what to do. So now let's just go get fireworks and just, I cannot tell you the amount of, that was probably one of the worst years ever. And we had a lot of complaints from the community. And, our response is, again, we address the fireworks complaints when we can. We make sure that we're doing some pre-enforcement. So I want to let the community know some of the things that we do beforehand. So, because I know a lot of times this can be very aggravating for people.
But it is a zero tolerance, correct?
Zero tolerance.
Because I remember this from last year.
It's zero tolerance. And it's always been zero tolerance.
Okay.
And, I think that, I just had a community advisory board meeting last night with a bunch of community members who are great. And we talked a little bit about fireworks and, loud music because this is the time, right? In summer. And I would just say, when you live in a neighborhood, if you know your neighbors and you're going to have a party, generally, if your neighbors are favorable towards you, right, and that you guys have a very good relationship, most of your neighbors are never going to call the police, right? Because
they start out by inviting them.
That's my point, right? So, it's a very simple premise. And as much as I'd like to say it's a very simple premise and that should happen, we do realize that some people don't get along with each other. So
it's going to happen.
It does. And then it becomes here comes a car with loud music. Now they're having a party. So we don't know all that backstory when we're going to a call for service. It's generally, there is loud music going on. Now, when we get there, we may hear this, more extended version of events in terms of, I've had problems with them in the past. This has been going on. But if always call us, and the officer will go out there and they'll make that determination on what they think that they should do, right? What's their next steps? But with 4th of July and with fireworks, so here's what we do. And we've been doing this the past probably 2-3 years. And, whether that lends to our downward trend in our fireworks complaints, it could be. It could also just be, people are not spending as much money on fireworks. They're, the cost of inflation, things are more expensive now. So that discretionary, funds that people might have in their household may not be, it's, buy, milk or let's go blow off some fireworks, right? So there's a lot of things that play into it. But what we do and we start this in June. So you'll start seeing a lot of social media and Facebook information about, how many people are injured with fireworks each year. How many people are killed each year with fireworks nationally, safety, what you shouldn't be doing, another way to enjoy the 4th of July. So you're going to start to see a lot of the educational, promotional stuff coming out, basically saying, hey, here's what, you can do instead of this. There's also some parts in terms of the ordinance. The city has an ordinance, a fireworks ordinance. You cannot possess, sell, or use fireworks. And I do get this question a lot. Sometimes there will be these makeshift pop-ups at gas stations that are selling fireworks. I will tell you, if they are within the city of Elgin, yes, please let us know. That is there is a location in South Elgin that we routinely will get calls on. That is not the purview of the Elgin Police Department. That's South Elgin. If it's in Elgin, we will address it.
But those are permitted little spots that have those, right?
Yeah, you'll see these pop-up tents,
Right.
and then it depends what type of fireworks they're selling. So, you know, you
Well,
can't.
none of them should be selling.
No, so you can.
Class A?
Sparklers are okay,
Yeah,
right? There's
sparklers,
some
snakes,
the
this-
poppers.
yeah.
So those are fine. But if they're selling fireworks, no, you can't have fireworks.
Nobody can sell them.
Nobody can. So
Or possess at the state. of
or
Illinois.
possess. And so that's where, you know, call us and we'll address it. So our, you know, education to the community starts a month ahead of time. And, you know, here's the ordinance. Be aware of it. The fines. The fines go all the way up to $1,500. So if we go out there and we cite you, and then we're back again and we cite you, and then we're back, we will continue to cite you. So, and then when you go to court, it will be up to the adjudicator to decide what the penalty is. But the ordinance allows for up to $1,500 each citation that you receive. So again, it's the risk versus reward. But I do try to let the community know.
You know,
that-
if I can interrupt you
Sure.
for one, even though you say zero tolerance, and again, you're talking community policing, you're talking, we want the police to get along with the residents.
Yep.
First time you arrive, maybe it's a,
Conversation, yeah. So when I
okay.
say
so it's not just an immediate ticket.
no, so
but
it-
you're going to confiscate and say you're not doing it.
except for this, and this is where, you know, and I want to say, if we have been to your house before,
That's what I'm saying.
and even if it was last year, you have been given a warning, right?
Okay.
So the officers have the ability to go into our data system and look and see, you know what is on the citation in terms of, like, you know, I had a conversation, you know, person confiscated fireworks, end of the story. So if you've been told before, that's different, right? So, but if this is like the first time we've ever had contact, maybe you've just moved to Elgin, there's always the outliers, right? So, but generally officers are told zero tolerance.
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, there's also some, people have to be very aware of, like, when you call the police and there's fireworks, by the time the call comes into our dispatch center, by the time the officer responds, the event is probably over. That does not mean that the officer's not going to go out there, look for evidence, talk to neighbors, right? Very rarely will you catch somebody in the middle of lighting fireworks, right? Yeah. You just happen to see. So I would definitely, you know, be patient with us. If you're calling us on the 4th of July, there's going to be a lag in time. We do have officers, but you have to also remember, you know, the priority is the safety of people at events. You know, and if we get to that fireworks call, we will eventually. I don't have an unlimited number of officers standing at every street corner watching for every ordinance violation. That's just not how policing works. So if you see something, even though we have an ordinance, fireworks ordinance, and it's happening, just call us, let us know. We will go out there, we will address it. I get it on from both ends, right? People, you know, they say, well, what are you guys wasting your time with fireworks ordinance for, right? Let people, you know, why are you guys wasting your time with panhandling ordinances? Why are you guys wasting your time with, and so I can tell you that, you know, and then you get the other side where people are like, you know, you need to address this, you need to address this. So it's a balance between, you know, what are the priorities that are going on? If we're getting a call for fireworks, but then there's a shots fired call, the priority is the shots fired.
Absolutely.
You know, so, and I think our community understands that. However, all that enforcement. So what we do, though, is we do allocate some additional officers throughout the month of June to just focus on fireworks. So starting the first week of June, we'll have some officers, one on the east side, one on the west side. They are not tied to any calls for service, obviously, unless there's a major event. And their job is to be proactive, to go out into the neighborhoods, to look for fireworks complaints. So we are taking some proactive measures, right? So it's the education, it's the enforcement when we need to. And then you'll see also the city I think the last 2 years, there's signs that you can pick up at City Hall and also at the police department. I think we're just in the process of getting the signs made that you can put in your yard that says, hey, a veteran lives here. I have a pet that lives here. Right?
Yeah, people don't understand that.
Yes.
The pets alone, which I'm very familiar, but the veterans, and there's other individuals that are going through some, I don't know, they say that's called psychotic, but there's something that they're dealing with, that the loud noises, the booms. It's not just the veterans, there's other people
Yes.
that are suffering
Yep.
these loud noises
Yep.
for a trauma that they've been through.
Yes, and that's a great point, right? So I think, like, that's, again, it's just being very considerate of your neighbor. I think a lot of times, you know, when people they hear a fireworks violation and, you know, they call the police because they're agitated, they're aggravated, right? I got to go to work. My dog is, running around in circles. They're a veteran. It's all this stuff. And, to that person, that's what matters in that moment, right? And then the other person might be like, why are you calling the police about fireworks? Like, let us just have fun, right? So we are the neutral party in the middle that is there to educate, to enforce, and make sure that everybody lives peacefully, right? But I would caution, there's a lot of the 4th of July. I said last year and the year before, it's actually trending downward, so it's not been bad. So, I appreciate the community working with us. The city does host a fireworks event, and you'll hear people say, and I've heard it, so the city can blow off fireworks, but I can't. It's like, okay, I mean, yes, because it's a city-sponsored event.
It's licensed. There are people that are
permits,
certified.
It's professionals. There's people.
Correct.
And it's also a celebration for people to come. And so, yes, the city can do that. Yes.
And it's a publicized event.
Yes.
And if those
Anyone can
noises
come.
bother you,
Yes.
you avoid them.
Yes.
You don't partake.
That's why you're never going to win. You're never
No
going to
matter
win.
what.
You're never going to win.
Toughest job in the world.
So I think it's for us. It's not about the win necessarily. It's just about making sure I want to make sure people know we are aware. We do enforce it. There is an ordinance. We do a lot of pre-planning. We also will go out into certain neighborhoods this next month where we have a lot of large volume of fireworks calls. We do mini walk and talks. Go in the neighborhood. Hey, just so you guys know, last year your neighborhood was a lot of fireworks going on, right? There's an ordinance. So we do that pre-education. And we have that conversation with the community. And generally people are more, they get it, right? They may not like it, but they get it. So we do pre-walk and talks. We, make sure that we're...
They're going to get away with whatever they can.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Bottom line.
and yes, and
A
I
lot
think
of the
that
residents.
I think people don't realize too that the police are we are being responsive. I think a lot of times when people see an officer show up and there's no resolve, you don't necessarily know what the resolve is. They've
Right.
talked to someone they can't find. There is a process. They are doing their job. So I would just ask as this month comes up, and I will talk about it probably every Friday here. Be aware of the ordinance. Make sure you're being kind to your neighbor. Don't assume that the police are not doing their job just because the behavior. We might show up, the fireworks will stop. And then when we leave, it might start again. So that's not because the officer just told them, go ahead and blow off fireworks. We don't care. That's not what's going on, right? So just be patient with us. My neighborhood where I live, I think people in my neighborhood know I'm the police chief. They know that my husband is a police officer. And I will tell you, one year I came home from working, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning too, by the time I got home, here all morning for the parade, then all afternoon. And then, and when I turned into my subdivision, it was like a big fog of smoke.
It was like Beirut.
So I'm pretty certain that they were blowing off fireworks,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so, people, and they know what I do, right? So it's not like, but they also probably know I'm not home, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, she's gone. So, our community is great. I do know that people just sometimes are very, they don't like the outcome because it's not stopping. And we're trying, we're making we're doing everything we possibly can, detail officers, education, enforcement, making sure that we're doing walk and talks, making sure that we are every single thing we possibly can, absent me having 200,000 officers for the city of Elgin that I could put on
Never
every
gonna
street
happen.
corner, right? We are doing everything. So
Thousands of dollars are spent annually at firework displays.
yes,
You want to have fireworks. You want to go see fireworks. Go watch the pros.
yes.
Go, and participate. In fact, the city could use donations on them. Everyone's always collected on that.
And it's a great event too.
And it's
The
a safe
city-
event.
It's a
and
safe
nobody
event.
has a problem.
No, it's a great event. It's a safe event. I think people are just very excited for it. Summer is kicking off. It gets very busy at the department. And so a lot of community events. You have, as I mentioned, the 4th of July, and then we're going to have National Night Out, and then we're going to have the end of summer bash, and then we're going to have, a little break, and then we go into Nightmare on Chicago Street. That planning's already going on. So there's all these things. So I think for everybody to enjoy a safe summer, a safe environment, just be, let's support each other. Let's be polite. Let's show some love to each other. Let's and then the police are there, right? I can tell you that, yes, they are doing their job. So I stress that a lot because sometimes I'll have people tell me, your officer showed up and they didn't do anything. It's like, well, let me explain what they did. Like this is why they were able to do what they were doing. This is what, and if they're not doing what they need to do, no worries. We'll have a conversation, right? But 99.999% of the time, it's just a misinterpretation of what they see, right? So the officer just drove by. Well, they kind of did, but they didn't, right? They were on the phone with the complainant. These are the things that you may not necessarily see. So I wanted to mention fireworks because it is coming up. It is a big deal. And again, we hope to have a safe event and everybody, if there are questions, please let us know. So I also want to mention a little bit about just as we move into the month of June, we'll be finalizing our May crime stats. But just to, again, I mentioned shots fired briefly each week, only because I feel it's there are times when our shots fires were up and so we are 61% down from where we were last year.
That's wonderful.
So year to date, we're at 12 incidents. Last year at this time, we were at 31. So we are at a 61% decrease. So, I feel like I'm going to just say that because I always am up here talking about how the shots fired might be up or we might be. So a 61% decrease. We are on a downward trend. There is nothing different that we have been doing. So same strategy, right? Working with federal partners, making great arrests for gun arrests. Being very proactive, making sure that we're following up on every investigative lead, making great arrests. So this is just the nature of how crime works. There's so many other things that affect crime that's why it's very hard to, when sociologists and criminologists study crime and you look at the cause and effect of crime, one of the things is we talked about COVID. During COVID, we saw a huge increase in our shots fired data. And, you can look and say, well, what was going on, right? Like, are people resolving conflict more or, much more quick and inclined to resort to violence?
Sure.
So
Political climate changes everything.
That's the other thing.
I mean, so many different variables that can make people act in different ways. Well, 2 towns over, you had what would cause a family member to stab, and I don't expect you to answer on it, but stab 2 of his family members, 2 of his sisters, stabs them, and he's on the run now. What causes that to happen?
Yeah.
What is that person going through? It's like, oh, what a bum, what a crumb. But maybe something happened to him, and this was his way of acting out. I'm not advocating for him.
Yeah, no.
But it's just, my gosh.
Yeah, I think
would make
that's
something like that happen, and that happens daily.
It does. I think it's it's a very interesting topic when you look at crime trends and crime patterns. There are some things that you can forecast, right? Depending on, but then you'll see what is happening. So during COVID, and then you start thinking about the fraud that was occurring, right? So people are, getting loans, and they're calling people, and people are applying for these loans. That's only happening because of something that's happening, globally, right? COVID, the pandemic. So, and then you think about some crimes. We used to, when I was hired in 1996, we would have people drive off at gas stations. They'd go in, they fill their gas tank, and they drive off. That doesn't happen anymore because now you have to pay at the pump. There's video surveillance, right? So in 1996, it's a rarity to have video surveillance. Maybe the Grand Victoria had it. So now anywhere you go, there's a camera. So it's like as technology moves and as people progress and as crimes, but then crimes also evolve. If you think about now cryptocurrency and the crimes that come with that and cyber crimes, that's also now a new element. And so, crime goes up, it goes down. Year to date, I will tell you, so this is through April of 2025, we are at an 8% decrease with our Group A offenses, which are the most serious. So through April of 2024, we were at 1,505 crimes. And this year we're at 1,384. And again, that's an 8% decrease for Group A. Group A are the most serious offenses. So again, I could be sitting here at the end of the year. We might have an uptick. We might not. I will tell you with our shots fired, we're 61%. I think that's good news for the community. There have been community members that have called on the show about the shots fired. Yeah. So I encourage them to give me a call to, say that you're hopefully pleasantly happy for at least now, right? That,
things are down.
The things are down. It could go up next week. It could go down. But this is, this is where I think when we have that conversation about crime stats, it's always important to make sure that that conversation happens all the time. A lot of times, I have seen in my career where, agencies might only release the crime stats or talk about it when you're in the downward trend, because that's the easy conversation, right? Everything is going great, things are going down, and then they're forced to respond when something negative or when you see this huge uptick. For me, it's every month, consistency. Every month we release our crime stats. Every 2 months, myself and Ryan Drake, we do a video that's on our transparency site. We talk about crime trends. Routinely I'll come here and talk about shots fired. To me, it's a consistency, right? We're up, we're down. Here's what we're seeing. Elgin, we need your help here. Can you help us out? But it's also to reassure the community that, we're aware of what's going on. And, a lot of crimes are solved because our community comes forward, because we have a great relationship with them. So they're part of this whole equation, and a lot of times there's always the element of unreported crime. So when you see our fireworks stats, it's a downward trend. And I have said, though, these are the crimes, these are the fireworks that we know about, whether that's the officer hears it or someone calls. There is an element of crime throughout the country that when the FBI releases their uniform crime report stats and they talk about or their information, there's an amount of crime that goes unreported. So that is the unknown variable in your picture. So we used to do uniform crime reporting, UCR reporting, and the way that reporting would go, if you had an offense where somebody was battered, they were hit, they were struck by something, then that ended up with some type of homicide. The UCR only took the highest criminal offense, whereas now,
I was going to ask you that.
Yes,
it seems like yours is a little more detailed,
yes, ours
and
is
a little more broken out. Even though I imagine you still have to report your
so ours, the way we report
to
is through the National Incident-Based Reporting System. It's through NIBRS. And what NIBRS does, and we still report to the state, and we report to the federal, the FBI, NIBRS is, it takes that incident and breaks down each category. So you're getting a better picture of crime, right? Because if I only tell you the worst of the offense that has happened, that's not actually accurate, right? So NIBRS breaks it down by category. It's more specific. You're able to align your strategy a little bit better. So year to date, through April, we should be releasing our May crime stats in the next couple of weeks here, but 8% down, 61% down in shots fired. So all really good things. And again, I could be here next week saying we're at 8% increase. Yeah. However, I think, when we sit here and we do take the time to think about some of the things that we have done as a community and as a department, and I can't stress it enough. The department is filled with a lot of great people that truly are dedicated to the Elgin community. We're not perfect people. No one is, right? So we do, if we do make a mistake, we apologize. If we need to do something better, we do. So I think that, just really making sure that we're, working together. And then I am seeing some YouTube comments that I just want to hit here real quick. So first I want to say hi to Brendan. So hi, Brendan. And then we have Jeanette and Pat. They're talking about, it looks like maybe a panhandler in the area of, let me see here. I'm going to scroll up. Lillian and McLean. So what I would say is please call us when you see him out there. Again, he may have received tickets. The ordinance is very specific in terms of where they can be. They have to be out of the middle of the street. The ordinance information is available on the city site. So breaks it down so that when you're seeing and where, depending on where he's standing, he may be in compliance with the ordinance. So if you do see him and he is being aggressive, I would, again, make sure you're calling us. So, I'm just happening to see this right now on YouTube here is because I'm just staring at the screen. I normally am not looking at the screen for the most part. So if he is out there, call us. We'll send an officer and we will absolutely address it. We did put an ordinance into place. The city put an ordinance. I think it's drastically reduced the incidence of panhandling. I have heard that anecdotally. We have seen it, but I also know there's always going to be people who will continue to probably violate the ordinance. So if you do see it, and especially if they're being aggressive, please call. We'll send an officer and we will address it. So if you have any questions, Jeanette or Pat, please let me know. I'm more than happy to assist you. And I think that takes us right to 9:30. So thank you.
This is our time, Chief. Thanks for being here.
I hope everyone has a great weekend and everybody stays safe. And I will be back next Friday.
Been Fridays with the Finest with Chief Anna Lalley. And I know those of you looking for career opportunities, they're looking for dispatchers,
Yep.
call screeners and dispatchers.
Yep.
So check it out with the city.
Check it out on Facebook and also joinepd.com, which is our recruiting site where you can find all information on it.
Because that's where it all starts, really. A lot of screening helps a lot of crime. Anyhow, thank you very much, Chief Anna Lalley. Been listening to Fridays with the Finest right here, WRMN 1410. Up next will be Steve Thorne. We'll see him in just a little bit.